Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's spotlight shines on the rising stars of the legal world, where young firms, bold ideas, and smarter systems take center stage. Standing tall at the intersection of law and leadership, he's the digital strategist, the legal growth architect, the man with the mic. Make some noise for your host. This is Legal Currents with Will McCreight.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Legal Currents podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest, somebody that I have had the pleasure of getting to know over the past couple of years, somebody I greatly admire, also one of the best looking people that you'll meet in the space, not just saying that because people call us twins. The founder of LegalFlare, Chris fucking Rose. Chris, thanks for joining.
Hey, Will. Before we begin, I knew about your podcast before I knew you, and so this is a moment for me. Like I one day hope to be on your podcast even before we had become friends. So I really appreciate you inviting me.
That's great to hear. I'll slip you $20 that I promised for that after the show.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, you are somebody who there's no way for me to like properly introduce you. You are like that incredible of a person. Let's start by just tell everybody a little bit about who you are. I know you have a really cool journey, but first, why don't we start by just giving everybody sort of a summary of what you guys do at LegalFlare.
So, Chris fucking Rose, we are the referral firm. We take all of the cases, all of the leads that other firms would turn down because they can't take them for case type or jurisdiction, or they need to refer them out into litigation. They don't have those partners. We take all of that. We manage all of those referrals. And that way, most people don't realize, they think of mailbox money. You know, you send out these leads and like you just get money in return. No, that's not true. Like case referrals are fucking hard, man, because you got to administration compliance, you got to babysit all these lawyers, make sure that they're following up on everything. And so LegalFlare takes care of all of that. So we really try to make mailbox money an actual thing.
Yeah. And it's something that I just see time and time again to be such a huge opportunity for firms. And something that I thought was really cool is I know you have talked about how LegalFlare is really set up more as a law firm than anything else. Tell me a little bit more about kind of the thought process behind that.
Yeah. So when I worked in sales and marketing, I worked for Steno for a few years, and they had this pretty cool payment option, deferred payments. It was basically depositions on contingency. And I looked at that and thought, this is something that would make it very sticky and appealing for plaintiffs firms. That way they're not having to put out the money initially and then wait to get paid back. And if things fall through, they're not on the hook. And so as I was coming up with this business idea, it occurred to me that, I am a lawyer. LegalFlare is completely owned by me. So instead of like charging for these things, I just take a percentage of the fees, for the legal services, the component that I provide. And then that way, if nothing ever comes of it, nobody owes anything and everybody gets paid out on the end. So I'm truly aligning my payment model with that of, my clients, my partners.
Yeah. And I think that is such a cool system, right? And that's something that I hear very regularly, in general from attorneys when they're, looking at like partnering up with like outside like vendors or just getting support in certain ways, right? It's very common in certain spaces to have like long commitments, right? Or ask for the money up front, right? And then you kind of have to have that trust. The way that you guys have that set up is something that I would imagine people are very attracted to. Your background in general though, right? You mentioned, having that experience in law. I would love for you to share a little bit more about your background because it's very interesting. And I would also love to hear a little bit about that poker piece. That's
okay. Yeah. Okay. So originally from Alabama, there's not a lot to talk about there. I mean, everything you've heard about Alabama is true. And so I moved out to Vegas on my 21st birthday. I asked my mom for $500 for a one-way ticket. moved to Vegas sight unseen. And I've been in love ever since. When I first got out here, I became a casino dealer. I worked in the pits, blackjack, craps, roulette, toward the end, baccarat, which is the dumbest game on the planet. And so I did that for a while. I was a professional poker player for 2 years, and that taught me a lot. Not only about people, it taught me a lot about myself. And then when Black Friday came through, I'm not sure if a lot of people know about that, but that was when the government clamped down on basically unregulated online poker. And so everybody's funds were frozen, mine included. So it was basically like they shut down my business. And then that's when I had to have a come to Jesus moment and decide that, maybe playing poker and video games and smoking weed all day wasn't the way to go. I should probably go out and become an adult. And so went to school, decided to, I was thinking about going into politics at the time. So going the lawyer route was the way to go. Became a lobbyist for 3 years and then moved into sales and marketing for a few years and then opened up my own law firm. And here I am.
It's funny because as you talk through those things, when you said you gave them up to grow up, it's funny because I feel like in the conference world, right, it's not that far away at times.
I was going to say that's probably part of the reason why I thrive.
A little birdie told me that you're pretty great at poker. I will say,
Yeah.
I'm sure you can figure out who that birdie is.
I believe I can. If I had to guess, I'd say he's a cardinal, right?
Yeah, John. So John, for anybody who doesn't know, John is another member of our team, somebody that I've been good friends with for a while, and he had a similar experience as you, where he did professional poker for a couple of years. And to your point, he has told me about some of the things that he has learned as well, and I think it's very fascinating, right? To be at a table with other people, to be friends with them, even though hopefully, right, you're kind of taking their money. You deal with lots of different individuals. You learn lots of different communication styles. Have you felt that translate kind of to your current role and like involvement in these cases when they're being referred?
So let's, I mean, that kind of maybe mixes two things a little bit. So I'll separate this. On the case side, I've got my system. Like everything is intelligently routed. All of that is essentially automated, built on, solutions. And so I'm not looking at the cases unless there's something special that requires attention, decisions, things like that.
More marketing yourself though, right?
Oh, yes.
Promoting the brand, yeah.
Exactly. So when it comes to, so we'll go to the other part. What did I learn playing poker? We'll start with what it means to compete with other people. I learned to be very, very sensitive to gestures, to people's actions. And people say there's, everybody thinks there's like tells or something like that, how they rub their chips or where they look. And to some extent, I would say I probably lean on that if a decision is close, so it's like 5% maybe. But the real key is actions. Actions will tell you everything. Don't listen to what people are saying. Just consider what they're doing, and then try to pull apart that logic. What makes them do this? Why did they choose this action or inaction? And put yourself in that position. And I think that has really helped me to better understand other people and myself. That way I can kind of step outside and think like, well, why the hell did I do that? Yeah. And so that's a lot of it. And then if there's anything that truly underpins poker, it's that aggression and luck can masquerade as skill all day long.
I do think you're selling yourself short as far as just your ability to connect with people socially, which I of course want to stress. The other thing that John has told me in the past that has stuck with me actually is at the end of the day, it's about percentages, right? And, if you have a 55% chance in theory of being right, that's the decision you're supposed to make, right? And it's, the law of averages over time, right? You have to expect that stuff to play out. And that's something that I've always found super interesting. One thing that I noticed that you spoke about, you said that that the founding thesis, essentially every time a law firm declines a lead, they lose value, right? And I think you actually put a number behind it, I believe, something close to like 3% or so, and the overall conversion rate of leads that other firms have already declined. Could you expand upon that a little bit and tell me if there's anything else that I'm missing regarding that?
No, you're exactly right. It all depends on the quality of the firm's intake, the quality of their marketing, and so we'll start at the start. What's coming in, and depending on the marketing, are you targeting your audience well enough so that you're only getting the type of leads that you want? Because if a PI firm is getting like a lot of employment law leads, well, then it kind of begs the question, like, how good is your marketing really? Which that benefits me, of course. And anybody that calls is good, but for firms that are getting that don't want employment law cases, I think we're converting like maybe 9% of those, which is phenomenal, because every jackass who didn't get their birthday off wants to sue their boss. So like that, I compare it to sorting through the discount DVD bin at Walmart. You're just like, you got to get through Airbud 7 and Three Ninjas, kick back again. But, every now and then you find Big Trouble in Little China for like $3, and then like, boom, that makes your day. And then, so the other part of it is your intake. Like how good is your intake? Because the leads that we're getting, they're turned down because intake decided that it wasn't for them or whatever. And on those, I think, what we would classify as wanted cases, it's like 11%,
Wow.
And that's across the board. Some firms are better than others. We just brought on a firm, and they've sent us, I don't know, probably 200 leads in the past like 2 weeks. We haven't signed one of those. Like, their intake is on point. So I don't know. I'm gonna, like, I love it. It's good information, but like those guys, somebody needs to take a day off over there.
Well, intake is such a fascinating thing, because truly that intake affects every ounce of the firm, right? And somebody on the marketing side of things, for example, we have found that, it's important to secret shop even like once a quarter, right? While intake is not like a responsibility of ours, if the intake's not strong, we're not getting the best conversions that we could. I'd love to hear more about your insights as far as things that you have found to be consistent with a good intake for, potentially the example that you shared, versus things that you have found to be missing when intake isn't super strong.
Yeah. I'd love to get your input on this one as well. And so I think that the how can I put this? The one component, like the piece of it that I feel when I'm talking to firms is, are they hungry? Like, are when we send them leads, are they like chasing down everything? Are they, calling the person right away? Even if the case details, the summary is like, oh, this looks like trash. Are they still calling the person and asking questions that might reveal something else? Or are they just declining right away, or coming up with some bullshit, excuse so that they don't have to do it? And our best performing firms are looking at those shit leads, and they're thinking, maybe there's a question here I could get away with. So let me turn it back on you, Will. What do you see from the highest performing firms? Is there like some single, like, what is the one commonality?
Yeah. I will say one thing that comes to mind, and it's similar to what you said, right? Like, to me, what I find is that the firms that are most successful almost look at each contact as it's a lead until proven otherwise, right? As opposed to the opposite, right? There's always excuses, to your point, to say, okay, it's not a good one, right? We're not chasing it down, etc. But to me, I think if there was one thing that I had to just boil it down to, it's that the firms with successful intake understand how essential it is. Once you understand how important that is to your overall growth, it's then something, at least that I see typically, is treated as such. One thing that you talk about as well that I would agree with is that intake is sales, right? The people that really treat intake like it should be, they tend to perform the best. And I know that one piece of that has become more and more popular in recent years is like the non-attorney salesperson, right? Or the non-legal salesperson, where it's, okay, we're bringing on this person because they know how to sell, they know how to close, and then we're bringing them in. And that's something I believe that you agree with as well, the idea that intake is sales.
1,000,000%. And the way I think of it is like when we go to websites, people, they usually they're going for confirmation. They want the confidence to know that they're making a good decision. And so if someone's at a law firm website, they're not there usually thinking like, well, what does a personal injury firm do? They know they got into an accident and they know they need a lawyer. Like, they are problem aware and they are motivated. So, they're solution aware. They're asking, is this the right firm for me? They're looking for confirmation that they are making the right decision by calling this firm. And so if an intake picks up and is like, yeah, blah, 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 whatever, this is the firm. Yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself, okay. Well, and it's not as opposed to someone's like, oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry. Like this is awful. You need representation right away. Like insurance company's going to be calling you, and they're not on your side. Yes.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, they're looking for someone to tell them you made the right decision by calling us. And that's what sales is. It's confirming someone's decision.
Yeah, speaking with that confidence. And, I also view that intake begins before the phone is picked up, before that call is made. To your point, it's that first impression. It's when they land on your website, are we providing that confidence that they've landed in the right spot, that you are the person for them? Because once they leave your site, we do not know if we'll get them back, right? And that's something that's huge. The idea that sales, or that intake is sales, I think is something where sales in general can have a bit of a mystique around it, right? Or, people think of that used car salesman, but at the end of the day, it's the difference between allowing you to get a good lead or not. And in today's day and age, with how much money is being invested into digital, you are doing yourself a disservice by not treating intake the same, which is something that we obviously both agree with.
Yeah. Intake is your front door. First of all, if nobody's picking up the phone right away or nobody's calling back right away, your front door is closed. You might as well have a close sign there. And then who is the person that you put up front? Like you want someone that's outgoing, preferably someone that's easy on the eyes, someone that's like going to engage people and make them think, oh, I walked into the right place. And, just like care about this a little bit. It's not easy. Lawyers aren't always good business people, or rarely business.
It's not, and that's what makes part of the intake challenge so special, is because it is always evolving. You're always reevaluating, and if you have a star in that team and they go elsewhere, right, you are back to square one, and you're trying to get yourself right back built up. It's why it's that component that's just so important. And I'm wondering, one thing that I saw, actually, I'd like to ask you about this. Did I see that you hiked the Appalachian Trail?
I did. Man,
So
it fucking
tell us more
sucked.
about that.
It was terrible. So I dropped out. I dropped out of school. I had been. I was at Georgia State for a semester, and school just wasn't for me at that time. Like, I was bored. It just, all of my friends are like, meeting their, soon to be wives. They're talking about their careers, and I was like, man, I'm still like 8 years old at heart, and you want me to go out and like be an adult? This isn't going to happen. And so I really, if I'm going to be entirely honest, I kind of had a breakdown, and it was an existential crisis. And I decided that I needed to get away from everything that was anchoring me to the past, because all of these relationships you have with, friends, family, they never see you for who you are right now. I mean, even if you saw someone yesterday, they are still seeing the yesterday you, because something could have happened. People have a very hard time updating, and especially if you've had these relationships, I mean, family especially, they see you as the child that they knew. And so I said, I'm going to just get out away from everyone as far as I can and get to know myself. And so I, saved up a little bit of money and strapped on a backpack. I'd actually never been hiking before. I know, I do these things. I'm, drunk on confidence 24 hours a day. And so I was 20 years old at the time, or I just turned 20. And I set out, and it was intoxicating. It was so much fun. Like the first month I was meeting all of these people, and there was so much freedom and just learning all these new things about myself. And then after a month, 75% of everyone out there just fell off. They either got injured or they realized, man, walking 20 miles a day with 40 pounds on your back up and down mountains all day, it sucks. And then so started getting really lonely. And then that's when that isolation that I signed up for hit me like a ton of bricks. And I remember I was 3 months in, 3 months
Incredible.
into this, and just realizing I was only at the halfway point. And I remember I called my mom from this payphone in West Virginia or something. I was just crying and this sucks so much. It's so bad. I hate it. It's hot. I've got heat rash. There are raccoons eating my food and mosquitoes. And my mom was just give it another day. You're just having a bad time. And it's all right. And it was 2 days later, I had a pretty good day, and that was enough for another month, and so I just kept going. And it was really, there were some beautiful things, and I learned so much about myself, and I almost died 3 times. Saw a bear.
As well.
Yeah. I was confronted by a bear in the Smoky Mountains, 1 a.m. Cause I love hiking at night. There's something, about
Except
being
at this
terrified.
time, it was your first hiking experience.
Yeah. I mean, technically, yeah, my second hike ever, was the Appalachian Trail. But yeah. And then I almost froze to death one night. And, one time I got Lyme disease while I was out there. I almost dehydrated in New Hampshire. And so what I learned about myself was that if I start something, I have a very hard time not finishing. That's who I am, no matter. Thanks.
It's incredible.
For everybody who's considering it, I will say, don't do it. It sucks.
Well, I wanted to ask you about one quote specifically, because I read this quote, and I will say that this is perhaps one of my favorite quotes that I can remember in recent time. You said, "It's hard to die, so take a few chances." And I think that is such a cool quote. And I would imagine, right, because this was around 2020, if I am reading that correctly. How did that experience and even just the idea, right? It's hard to die, so take a few chances. To your point earlier, you just start going. How did that, if at all, inspire you to start what you're doing right now at LegalFlare?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, it's I know that I'm always going to be fine, and it doesn't apply to everybody, but I've got far too many good things going for me, and even at my worst, I'm still going to be much better than most people. And then actually getting out there in the woods and seeing it. I mean, I say it's hard to die in terms of your body just keeps going. You keep waking up. You keep waking up. Those times when I really thought I was in serious trouble or something was about to happen. I still kept waking up, and so that's kind of given me the fool's confidence to believe that, I'm going to live forever. But you got to take those chances. And, that definitely helped me start LegalFlare. Going back to poker, what you said about if you've got a 55-45 edge, that 10%, is yours. And I was thinking about it a couple of years ago. And, if I look at myself, am I an above average capability person? I think so. Would I give myself at least a 55%, favorable outcome, expected outcome? I would say absolutely. And so if I really think about that, and I'm willing to like put all of my, go all in, like put my entire stack on a 55-45, why wouldn't I do that with myself? If I really believe in myself that much, just like throw all the chips into the middle and just, that just believe, that's what it comes down to. And if I failed, if that 45% came up, then, just, go back to the cage, get some more chips. Yeah.
And I would argue that, another thing that you're selling yourself short on, right? Let's say you even had a 25% chance. You put your chips in the middle, you play the hand, and the other person across from you folds, right? Sometimes it's just making that action. It's just putting those chips in. That can be the biggest difference there. Something that I think is very cool. Another thing that you do great is, for anybody who's met you or knows you, they know that you are quite the personality. Like at conferences, you're a real presence, right? You're a friendly person, very outgoing, and you are somebody who makes a point to go out to meet people, to shake hands, to do all that stuff. How have you, if any, felt that in the business side of things, right? Because for me, when it comes to, things that you can do, that an attorney can do to compete, right, before they have the resources to compete with a mega firm, for example, right? It's go to conferences, it's meet people, it's build these relationships. How have you seen that to benefit you or also maybe others?
Yeah. I'm very fortunate, definitely being a casino dealer, for 15 years, that helped me to, when somebody would sit at my table, like I'm captive, and I'm working on tips. I'm trying to get this person to tip me when my job is to take their money. So I had to learn to engage people, to figure out like, what do they want to talk about? And so I'm really good at just peppering questions and figuring out like, do they want to talk about this? Do they want to talk about that? And just kind of like finding the topic. And then so I've leveraged that into my personal brand, because people want to be around other people who are charismatic, who are charming, who make them feel important. And that's what I love doing. I love just being around people and getting to know them. And if it's someone I genuinely am interested in, which is like 90% of all people, it's not hard for me to make them feel important, because in that moment, they really are important to me. I want to know all about them. John, our mutual acquaintance, John was, or I should say mutual close friend, said one of the favorite things I've ever said to him was, if you want to be interesting, be interested, because, everybody's favorite word is their own name. Like that's a fact. I mean, Chris fucking Rose, like I'll if I only had 3 words I could say. And so by talking to these people, like they want to be around other people who, make them feel good. And if we can get a good working relationship out of that, or if they have some opportunity that comes up, I want to be the first person that they think of at the forefront of their mind, and it's really branding, It's like when I go to the store to buy toilet paper, I always think of Charmin, whether it's the best or not, just because those old commercials, please don't squeeze the Charmin. It was just, it embedded itself. And so that's, branding is the emotions that we attach to, a personality.
And I think that you also do a great job of branding in an authentic way, right? Like when I think Chris fucking Rose, right? 90%, 99% of the people, if they tried to pull that stunt where you were, you write write it on your name badge, like all that stuff, right? It wouldn't fit. But for you, it's authentic. It's your personality, right? And it's because of that something that sticks.
Let me, may I turn this back around on you?
Please.
As someone that I really appreciate, and I really enjoy being around you, and I see you as being someone who doesn't have a veneer. I feel like every time I'm talking to you, I'm talking to Will, and that's not true for everybody. There are conference people, and so let me ask you this. I mean, people do ask me about that, and that's Chris fucking Rose, because my personality is a little bit more aggressive. I think, it's like I was saying earlier, aggression and luck, is confused for skill. But let me ask you, do you ever feel the need to like try to be more professional than you are, try to placate someone, or try to be, to fit some expectation, especially when we're surrounded by, lawyers?
Yes and no. When I think back to when I first started coming to conferences, even today, when I first started going, I think when I went to my first conference, I might have been 23, 24 years old. And going to that conference, you're surrounded by these, very successful attorneys who are, well into their career. They're much older than you, right? As somebody who is not an attorney, you already don't fit in, right? But then you're also a vendor. And I think that the authenticity behind it, of just going up to people, like talking to them like they're normal people, not approaching it with this agenda of like, hey, I'm trying to sell you SEO, or whatever the case may be. I think it helps create those conversations. But I would be lying if I said that there wasn't an intentional effort to at least appear professional compared to what I had perceived other people my age doing in almost ways that people would act in that space. I think reputation is something that's extremely important. And when you are on the road at conferences, right, whether you are, sitting down with your laptop or you're going to pick up something from the hotel like lobby area, you are essentially, right, your brand, your reputation is out there. And I do think it was something that I was very, very cognizant of early on, because I knew it was important to have a perception, right? And control anything that I could to build the reputation I wanted early on. And it's something I don't feel I need to think about as much now, but it's always top of mind, because at the end of the day, right, I am not an attorney when we're at these things. And so it's important that you have that authenticity. So I think yes and no.
Yeah. People, whether they're aware of it or not, can pick up on authenticity. If someone is actually being themselves, or if they've got their conference face on. And I'm fine with it either way. If someone feels like they have to be someone else at the conference, I'm always in favor of like dropping that. And I try to go like straight into it. When I meet someone, I'm like, hey, I'm Chris fucking Rose. Nice to meet you. Tell me about your childhood trauma, because like that, it forms a connection right away. But I also, I guess I just got tired of trying to be something I wasn't.
Yeah.
And, and so it just occurred to me that like, if someone doesn't like me for who I am, why would I want to impress them? Why would I want to work with them? Why would I want to be around them?
Mm-hmm.
And so, some people just don't have that confidence. Or maybe they're genuinely terrible people, in which case, please like keep faking it.
Yeah,
but,
keep faking it.
But the other part is like I just got tired of trying to live by those other standards, because when I first came onto the scene, and oh man, if you'd seen me in law school, like I wore like a button up and a tie every day, and I really felt like I was trying to like set this image. And I was just, it's like carrying around a load of weight all day long, and then when I just got tired and, frustrated, I said, fuck it. I'm wearing, my jeans and Metallica shirt to school today. And I just felt more comfortable, and like people responded, and I realized I was quicker and I was wittier, and I was nimble is what it is. And that was when I really began to think, hey, maybe maybe trying to, hold up this standard that isn't me is actually holding me down. And so,
Yeah. And I
you know,
think it's that authenticity piece, but also making the effort to go find the people that you do connect with, right? Which is
Mhm.
easier said than done, but at conferences, right? In just building those connections in general, it's going up to people. It's saying hello. It's being authentic. One of the quotes that I saw from you that I also thought was pretty cool, and I think it's a great analogy for just everything we're talking about here in general, is that like one of the things that you think when you get off of a podcast or like have a conversation with somebody is like, would I grab a beer with this person? And I think in business, I think in connections, and really in that conference world, right? If the answer to that is no, you're not really going to find these connections in the first place, right? And so it all starts by being authentic, right? By like connecting with people, and then you're in a room, and then when you're in a room, things happen.
Yeah, this is put yourself in position to get lucky. And you're right. And really, Chris fucking Rose, that is part of my sorting mechanism. People think it's me just, being, maybe childish or just authentic or whatever. But part of it is when I tell someone my name, when I say Chris fucking Rose, I'm looking right into their eyes. I'm using those skills that I learned, and I judge their demeanor. Is there a shift? Is there an instance, a micro expression of discomfort? And if so, I know that like I'm, no offense to them, but I'm probably just not going to, jive with them well. We're not going to vibe together. And I know like, okay, it's nice to meet you. I'm not going to try to make you any more uncomfortable. And so I know that they're just not someone that I would probably work with or hang out with. And so in that way, you're in sales, right? What is the second best answer in sales? When
No, it's no.
it's no, exactly. Yes or no. The worst is maybe, or, I'll think about it. And so when I say Chris fucking Rose, I'm looking at people and I'm asking, hey, this is what I'm selling, myself. Are you buying? Yes or no? And usually people let me know right away.
Yeah, and what, the momentum, all that stuff, and it's something you do well, and it's interesting to hear some of the tactic behind that, right, and some of the intention about those things. Really cool. I also saw on your LinkedIn bio, and this is something maybe I need to steal. I saw you had the height listed in there. Maybe that's, I think honestly, when I think about that, I think I need to get something more interesting about myself, because I think that my height is my brand to an extent. And I can do better than that. So the last thing I'll say, I would love, because as somebody who's seen, who's experienced every different side of a firm's experience that you possibly could, I would love to hear what you think the 1 to 2 lowest hanging fruit opportunities are that you typically see or ignored at any point in the experience.
From the law firm perspective, like increasing revenue, something like that.
If I'm an attorney, right? If I'm a lawyer and I go, what are the 2 lowest hanging fruit opportunities to grow my firm, to increase revenue that I might not be thinking about, or I might not commonly hear? Anything that comes to mind for you?
Lowest, I would say, oh man, this is a good question, Will. Okay, lowest hanging fruit. First one is, if audit or just like speak to your intake people. That's the first thing. Like, what is it? Secret shop your intake. Like that's it. Like pick up the phone, pretend you're hurt, call your intake. I guarantee what you learn on that phone call will teach you volumes. And that's the easiest one, lowest hanging fruit. It will either be validation and confirmation, or it will be a wake up call. One phone call. That's all it is. The number 2, I would say, is systems. Like that's the, just think of everything in systems. Just what are you doing? What are you doing over and over? Is it written down? If you stepped out of the office for a week, is everything going to continue going down the same path, or are people just going to be vibing? Because in LegalFlare, I hate vibes. as someone who vibes all the time,
I was going to say, it's someone with a great vibe.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and I thrive in chaos. Like that's one of the reasons why I do so well in conferences. It's because like the chaotic good. I love to get in there and just use my abilities. But when it comes down to it, systems like numbers measure everything. If any of your decisions are based on feelings, and probably most of them are. I very much subscribe to behavioral economics, that we believe we make logical decisions, but we actually make emotional decisions and justify them logically. And so don't let that happen. No vibes. Everything needs to be justified by a number. Break everything down, quantify everything. Maybe that's not so simple, but I think the simplest thing is like beginning to move, like think in those. So, and can I ask you the same thing? Like, what would you say? I mean, because you probably have, more experience on the marketing side than I do.
When it comes to marketing, or when it comes to the firm in general?
I will let you decide.
Okay. Well, here's what I will say. When I go up on stage, something I say every single time is, and it's one of the most common misconceptions that I hear, is a lot of people view, for example, digital marketing as something that is so cloudy. It's so difficult to understand. It's so impossible to even just assess, that they don't get started at all. And what I found is that that firms can do a lot more and accomplish far greater success through their own efforts than they give themselves credit for, or that they attempt to do. They just don't know where to start. And I think I see the inaction in general to be one of the things that hold people back the most. It's sometimes over analyzing, right? If they don't have data to work with, the only way to get data is to try it, test it, track it, and then we can understand if it's worth continuing, and if it produces the return that you're looking for. So that's one of the biggest ones that I think people leave on the table. And the others are the basics, right? It's okay, I know that certain things like intake, I know a CRM is important, but I'm not really going to treat it that way. It's one thing to have a box checked. It's another thing to really incorporate that. And I think that what I've learned is that the people who are most successful on the firm side of things, they treat every small detail like it's the most important detail in the firm, and they're not afraid to try something in order to get an answer as far as whether or not it's worth continuing.
No, that's a good. Do you know your Colby index? You ever
No,
taken your...
I don't. But I was just talking with Erica at Pilma, and I need it. I told her I need it.
She did mine. Yeah, she did hours at LegalFlare, and so I know mine. I'm a quick start, and so like I don't need a lot. Like I'll go. I run headlong into danger. I mean, as you can probably tell,
it takes a lot to kill you.
Like it does. And so I want to just give one more quick actionable low hanging fruit since you said the marketing. Pay $20 for a Claude subscription, and then download Claude in your Chrome browser. Open up the tab, go to your own website, and tell Claude, come up with a criteria for optimized SEO, and then run it against my website and tell me what you find. Because I paid $20,000 for my website, and then when I popped it open, I got a 20 on the Lighthouse score. And Claude was just like, what is going on here? Like you've got a rat nest, it's like opening up the hood of a car and finding like squirrels under there. And so I spent a week just pulling all that out. And now my Lighthouse score is 99, which is boom. That's incredible. And it's getting better all the time. But for $20, go see what your website says. If you have a website.
I know that you're fantastic with that stuff, which we could probably talk for hours about. One thing I will say there, because it's timely, I just got off a call with somebody yesterday who essentially took that approach. They did something to their Google business profile where Claude or ChatGPT was like, hey, go ahead and make this change. And they're at risk of getting suspended getting their business profile suspended as a result of it. So also fact check it in general. The human once over. But I agree, right? There's information out there, and people can accomplish a lot more than they think they're able to by just being curious, by exploring, and by putting a couple minutes into it to figure it out, right? And I think that's no doubt a quality of yours that has contributed to your success and all of these cool things that you've done throughout the year that have led us to recording a podcast together. I guess tell everybody where they can find you. How can they connect with you? Where can they learn more about LegalFlare? What conferences will they see at coming up?
Yeah. Of course, chris.rose@legalflare.com. Anybody's welcome to shoot me an email. I try to go to a lot of conferences, but I've been building a lot lately. And it's the nature of contingent fee work that it takes a little while for these cases to start paying off. And so I've had to dial back on conferences, but I think the next one I'm going to is, or I know I'm going to, is Lawyer Growth Summit. That'll be a fantastic one. Maybe AAJ in Chicago. AAJ is such a pain in the ass. I appreciate everything they do, but as an organization, it's just like, give us more money. But I do love Chicago. And then, basically anytime Mike Morse throws a fireproof event, I try to go to those as well.
They're all great. You find yourself at the fun ones, and living in Vegas, right? I'm sure there's a 50% chance anything out in Vegas will run into you. And Chris, I really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, think very highly of you, all the stuff that you've done. And I know that everybody out there and the folks listening have a lot to learn from you, and not just your experiences, but what you've seen firsthand as well.
Yeah, thanks, Will. And I really meant it. Like this is a moment for me. I had really, looked up to you and thought that was so cool that you had a podcast, long before I met you. And so when you reached out to ask me to be on this, it was like, it's such validation. So I really appreciate you.
You know what? Another white guy with the podcast is what everybody's been asking for. I was happy to add myself into the mix there, and I know for sure that you will have much better and more significant accomplishments in the future and historically as well than joining my podcast. But I'll be bragging about you being on it. I'm sure already am. So appreciate it, Chris.
Same. Yeah, please.